Have you ever looked at your engagement ring and felt pure joy? Have you ever stared at that sparkling diamond and imagined your future, your wedding, your forever? I did. For exactly 6 days. 6 perfect, blissful days before two detectives knocked on my apartment door and told me the ring on my finger had been taken from a dead woman's hand. A woman who'd been murdered. And suddenly, the man I thought I knew, the man I'd agreed to spend my life with, became a stranger I wasn't sure I'd ever really known at all. My name is Jessica Morgan, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a marketing manager for a tech startup in Seattle. I have a degree from USC, a close group of friends, and what I thought was a pretty good ability to read people. I'm the friend everyone comes to for advice about their relationships. I'm analytical, careful, the type who researches everything before making decisions. I've never been impulsive. I've never been reckless. And I definitely never thought I'd be sitting in a police interrogation room being asked if I knew my fiancé was connected to a murder. This is the story of how a fairy tale proposal turned into a nightmare that nearly destroyed my entire life. This is about trust, deception, and discovering that sometimes the people we love most are hiding secrets we can't even imagine. Let me take you back to where it all started, to the night that should have been the happiest of my life. It was March 15th, a Friday evening. Spring was just starting to arrive in Seattle, that magical time when the rain finally stops and you remember what sunshine feels like. My boyfriend of 2 years, Daniel Matthews, had told me he was taking me somewhere special for dinner. He'd been mysterious about it all week, just saying to dress nice and be ready by 6. I'd suspected a proposal might be coming. We'd been talking about marriage for months, casually at first, then more seriously. We'd looked at apartments together, discussed timelines, even joked about wedding venues. My friends had been dropping hints that Daniel had been asking them questions about what kind of ring I'd like. I was excited, but trying not to get my hopes up too high. Daniel picked me up in his BMW, looking incredible in a tailored navy suit. He's 32, tall, with dark hair and these warm brown eyes that had made me fall for him the first time we met. He works in finance, something complicated with investments that I never fully understood, but that paid him well enough to afford a nice apartment in Capitol Hill and drive a car that cost more than I made in a year. "You look absolutely stunning," he said when I came downstairs in the emerald green dress I'd bought specifically for what I hoped this occasion would be. His smile was genuine, excited, maybe a little nervous, all the signs I was looking for. He drove us to Canlis, one of the most expensive and romantic restaurants in Seattle, perched on a hill overlooking Lake Union with stunning views of the city skyline, the kind of place you go for major life events. My heart was racing as we were led to a private table by the window, the sunset painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Dinner was perfect. We talked and laughed like we always did, about work and friends and this trip to Italy we'd been planning for the summer. Daniel seemed more attentive than usual, touching my hand across the table, looking at me with this intensity that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. Then, as dessert arrived, he stood up. The restaurant seemed to get quieter, or maybe that was just my heart pounding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. He came around to my side of the table and got down on one knee. "Jessica," he said, pulling out a small velvet box, "from the moment I met you at Sarah's birthday party 2 years ago, I knew you were different. You're brilliant, kind, funny, and you make me want to be a better person every single day. I can't imagine my life without you. Will you marry me?" He opened the box and I actually gasped. The ring was extraordinary. A massive oval-cut diamond, easily 3 carats, set in platinum with smaller diamonds wrapping around the band. It caught the light from every angle, throwing rainbow reflections across the white tablecloth. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Yes, I said through tears, not even caring that I was crying in this fancy restaurant in front of strangers who'd started applauding. Yes, of course, yes. He slid the ring onto my finger and it fit perfectly. We kissed and the whole restaurant erupted in applause and congratulations. The manager sent over champagne. Other diners stopped by our table to offer their best wishes. It was magical, exactly how I'd always imagined it would be. That night, back at Daniel's apartment, we called our families and close friends. My mom cried happy tears over FaceTime. My dad made jokes about Daniel being brave enough to take me on. Daniel's parents, who I'd met several times and always found somewhat cold and distant, offered congratulations that felt slightly forced, but I attributed that to them just being reserved people. My best friend Rachel screamed so loud over the phone I had to hold it away from my ear. I couldn't stop staring at the ring. It was so much more elaborate and expensive than anything I would have expected. I knew Daniel did well financially, but this had to have cost a fortune. "Daniel, this ring is incredible," I said as we lay in bed that night, holding my hand up to catch the light from the street below. "It must have cost so much. You didn't have to spend this kind of money." He kissed my forehead. "You're worth every penny. I wanted you to have something extraordinary, because that's what you are to me. Besides, I got a really good deal on it. A friend of mine knows a jeweler who gave me basically wholesale pricing." That made sense. Daniel had connections everywhere, always knew someone who could get deals on things. It was one of the things I'd found impressive about him, this network of people he seemed to know in every industry. The next day, Saturday, we spent the entire day celebrating. Brunch with my friends where they all squealed over the ring and started immediately planning my bachelorette party. Then dinner with Daniel's colleagues from work, successful finance guys in their 30s and 40s, who clapped him on the back and made jokes about him being the next to fall. Everyone wanted to see the ring. Everyone commented on how beautiful it was, how lucky I was, how Daniel had such great taste. Sunday, we drove to Tacoma to tell Daniel's grandmother in person. She was 92 and in a nursing home, and Daniel had always been close to her. She held my hand and examined the ring with eyes that were still sharp despite her age. "It's a beautiful ring, dear, very beautiful. Daniel, you chose well." But there was something in her expression I couldn't quite read, a flicker of concern maybe, or confusion. It passed quickly, and I decided I'd imagined it. By Monday, I'd posted photos on Instagram and Facebook. The likes and comments poured in. Friends from college I hadn't spoken to in years commented congratulations. Coworkers stopped by my desk to see the ring in person. My boss, a middle-aged woman who rarely showed emotion, actually hugged me and said she was happy for me. I was living in a blissful bubble of excitement and joy. We started making plans immediately, set a tentative date for next October, giving us about 18 months to plan, started looking at venues, made Pinterest boards of wedding inspiration, called my mom every night to discuss details. Those 6 days after the proposal were probably the happiest of my life. Everything felt perfect and full of promise. I had the sense that my real adult life was finally beginning, that all the years of working hard and making responsible choices were paying off in this perfect relationship with this wonderful man who loved me enough to buy me this extraordinary ring. Then came Thursday evening, March 21st, the day everything shattered. I was at my apartment in Fremont, the small one-bedroom I'd been renting for 3 years. I'd just gotten home from work and was changing into comfortable clothes, thinking about what to make for dinner, when there was a knock at my door, a firm, authoritative knock that immediately made my stomach tighten with some instinct I didn't fully understand. I looked through the peephole and saw 2 people I didn't recognize, a man and a woman, both dressed professionally in dark suits. The woman held up a badge to the peephole. "Ms. Morgan? I'm Detective Sarah Chen with Seattle PD. This is my partner, Detective Mark Rodriguez. We need to speak with you about your engagement ring. May we come in?" My engagement ring? What could the police possibly want with my ring? My first thought was that maybe it had been reported stolen at some point, maybe from a jewelry store before Daniel bought it, some kind of administrative mistake. I wasn't worried, just confused. I opened the door. Is everything okay? Is this about my ring? Detective Chen was in her early 40s, Asian American, with short black hair and an expression that was professionally neutral. Detective Rodriguez was older, maybe 50, Hispanic, with gray at his temples and kind eyes that didn't match the tension in his jaw. "May we come in?" Chen asked again. Of course. I stepped aside, feeling increasingly uneasy. What's this about? They came in and I offered them seats on my couch. I sat across from them in my armchair, very aware suddenly that I was in sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, that my apartment was small and cluttered with wedding magazines I'd already started collecting. "Ms. Morgan, we need to ask you some questions about your engagement ring," said Chen, pulling out a notebook. "Can you tell us when and where your fiancé proposed?" I explained about the proposal at Canlis, the beautiful evening, how happy I'd been. They listened without much reaction, just taking notes. "And did your fiancé tell you where he purchased the ring?" Rodriguez asked. "He said he got it from a jeweler through a friend, got a good deal on it, wholesale pricing." "Why? Is something wrong with it?" The detectives exchanged a glance that made my heart start pounding. Chen leaned forward slightly. "Ms. Morgan, we're going to need to see the ring. Is it here?" "Yes, I'm wearing it." I held out my hand, the diamond catching the light from my living room lamp just like it had every time I'd looked at it over the past 6 days. Chen pulled out her phone and showed me a photograph. "Is this your ring?" The photo showed the exact same ring on someone else's hand, a woman's hand with red nail polish, photographed against what looked like a professional backdrop. "It looks like mine," I said slowly, "but I'm sure there are other rings that look similar. Is this from the jeweler's website or something?" "Ms. Morgan," Rodriguez said gently, "this photograph was taken during a murder investigation. The woman wearing this ring in the photo was named Catherine Williamson. She was murdered 4 months ago. Her body was found in her apartment in Bellevue. This ring was taken from her during the crime and has been missing since then." The world seemed to tilt. I stared at them, unable to process what they were telling me. Murdered. My ring had belonged to a murdered woman. "That's not possible," I said, but my voice sounded strange and distant. "Daniel bought this ring. He said he got it from a jeweler. There must be some mistake. Maybe it's a similar ring, but not the same one." "We need to examine your ring to verify," Chen said. "Would you be willing to remove it so we can compare it to our photographs and documentation?" My hands were shaking as I tried to pull the ring off. It stuck slightly and I had to twist it. Finally, it came free and I handed it to Detective Chen, immediately feeling naked without it on my finger. Chen pulled out a small magnifying loupe and examined the ring carefully. She looked at the inside of the band, then showed something to Rodriguez. They both studied it intently for what felt like an eternity. "Miss Morgan," Chen finally said, looking up at me with an expression I now recognized as pity, "this ring has a unique inscription inside the band. C.W. Forever Loved. Catherine Williamson's initials. Her fiancé had it custom engraved when he proposed to her 6 months before her death. This is definitely the stolen ring." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't possible. Daniel couldn't have given me a ring stolen from a murder victim. There had to be an explanation. "Maybe he didn't know," I said desperately. "Maybe whoever he bought it from didn't tell him where it came from. Maybe he's a victim too, of someone who sold him stolen property." "That's one possibility we need to explore," Rodriguez said. "Miss Morgan, we need to speak with your fiancé, Daniel Matthews, correct? Can you tell us how to reach him?" I gave him his number, his address, his work information. I felt like I was betraying him, but what choice did I have? The police needed answers, and so did I. We're going to need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement, and we'll need to keep the ring as evidence." Evidence of what? Evidence that Daniel did something wrong? My voice was rising, panic setting in. He didn't do anything wrong. He bought a ring, he proposed, he loves me. "We're not accusing anyone of anything right now," Rodriguez said carefully. "We're just gathering information. But Miss Morgan, I need you to understand the situation. A woman was murdered in her home 4 months ago. She was beaten to death by an intruder who took several pieces of jewelry, including this engagement ring. We've been searching for those items since then because they're key evidence, and now one of those items has appeared on your finger. We need to find out how that happened." The full weight of it hit me then. My fiancé had somehow acquired a ring stolen during a murder. Either he'd bought it unknowingly from someone who'd stolen it, or something I couldn't let myself think about. "Do you think Daniel had something to do with that woman's death?" I whispered. "We don't know," Chen said honestly. "That's what we need to find out. Can you tell us where your fiancé was the evening of November 19th? That was the night Catherine Williamson was killed." November 19th, 4 months ago. I tried to think back. I don't know. I'd have to check my calendar. We weren't living together then. Some nights we'd see each other, some nights we wouldn't. I can't remember a specific date from that long ago. We'll need you to try to remember and check any records you have. Texts, calls, social media posts, anything that might indicate where he was or what he was doing that night. They asked me more questions about Daniel's background, his work, his friends, his family, how we'd met, whether I'd noticed anything unusual about his behavior, whether he'd ever been violent or aggressive, whether he had financial problems. I answered everything honestly, but it all felt surreal, like I was talking about a stranger, not the man I loved and had agreed to marry. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only 45 minutes, they said I could go, but that I needed to come to the police station the next day to give a formal statement. They gave me their cards and told me not to discuss this with anyone, especially not with Daniel, until they'd had a chance to question him. "We'll be contacting Mr. Matthews tonight," Chen said as they stood to leave. "Please don't warn him that we're coming. It could interfere with our investigation." After they left, I sat in my apartment in complete shock. I looked at my left hand, at the pale strip of skin where the ring had been. 6 days. I'd worn it for 6 days and shown it to dozens of people and posted it all over social media, and now it was evidence in a murder investigation. I grabbed my laptop and Googled Catherine Williamson, Seattle murder. The results came up immediately. Multiple news articles from November and December. Bellevue woman murdered in home invasion. Police seek leads in brutal killing of young professional. Catherine Williamson, 31 years old, found dead in apartment. I clicked on the most detailed article and my hands shook as I read. Catherine Williamson had been 31 years old, just 2 years older than me. She worked as an architect for a prestigious firm in Seattle. She'd been engaged to her boyfriend of 4 years, a man named Marcus Chen. They were planning a wedding for the following spring. On November 19th, Marcus had been out of town on business. Catherine had been home alone in their apartment in a nice area of Bellevue. Sometime that evening, someone had broken in. The police believed it was a robbery gone wrong. Catherine had been beaten to death by the medical examiner. Several pieces of expensive jewelry had been taken, including her engagement ring, a diamond necklace, and some designer watches. The apartment had been ransacked. Police had found no signs of forced entry, suggesting either Catherine knew her attacker or they'd had a key. The case had gone cold. 4 months later, police had no suspects and few leads. They'd appealed to the public for any information, especially about the stolen jewelry showing up at pawnshops or resale markets. I stared at Catherine's photo in the article. She was beautiful, with long dark hair and a bright smile. In the photo they'd used, she was wearing what appeared to be a professional headshot, probably from her architecture firm's website. She looked happy, successful, full of life. And now, she was dead, and her engagement ring, the symbol of her love and future with Marcus Chen, had ended up on my finger. I felt sick. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, then sat on the cold tile floor shaking. How had this happened? How had Daniel gotten that ring? There were really only a few possibilities. Either he'd bought it not knowing it was stolen from someone shaggy who'd sold him stolen goods, or he'd bought it knowing it was stolen, which would make him guilty of receiving stolen property at minimum, or he'd been involved in Catherine's murder somehow. No, that wasn't possible. I knew Daniel. I'd been with him for 2 years. He was kind, gentle, successful. He had no reason to rob or kill anyone. He came from money, his parents were wealthy, he made 6 figures in finance, he wouldn't need to steal jewelry, and he definitely wasn't capable of murder. But then a small voice in my head whispered, "How well do you really know him?" I'd never been to his parents' house, now that I thought about it. But then a small voice in my head whispered, "How well do you really know him?" I'd never been to his parents' house, now that I thought about it. He always said they were private people who didn't like hosting. We'd met them for dinners at restaurants a few times, but never at their home. I'd never met any of his friends from college. He said they'd drifted apart over the years, that he'd moved in different circles since graduation. I'd been to his office exactly once, briefly, to meet him for lunch. He always said his company was strict about visitors and security. There were whole parts of his life I'd never actually seen. I'd accepted his explanations because I trusted him, because I loved him, because I had no reason not to believe him. But now, sitting on my bathroom floor at 10 p.m. on a Thursday night, with detectives on their way to question my fiancé about a murder, I realized I might not know him at all. My phone rang, Daniel's name on the screen. My hands shook as I answered. "Hey, babe," he said, sounding normal and cheerful. "Just calling to say goodnight. I'm about to head to bed. Love you." "Love you too," I managed to say, my voice cracking. "You okay? You sound weird." "Just tired. Long day at work. I'll call you tomorrow." "Okay. Sweet dreams, future Mrs. Matthews." I hung up and started crying. Future Mrs. Matthews. What if there was no future? What if everything I'd believed about my life was a lie? I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed refreshing news websites, searching for any updates about the detectives contacting Daniel. Around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Morgan, this is Detective Chen. We've made contact with Mr. Matthews and have asked him to come into the station tomorrow morning for questioning. Please come in at 2 p.m. to give your statement as discussed. Do not contact Mr. Matthews before then." I stared at that text for an hour. Made contact, asked him to come in for questioning. What did that mean? Had he agreed? Did he know what it was about? Was he scared? Angry? Confused? Was he guilty? At 6 a.m., my phone rang again. Daniel's mom, Patricia. I'd never gotten a call from her before. We barely spoke beyond pleasantries at family dinners. "Jessica." Her voice was cold, clipped. "I need to speak with you. Can you come to our house this morning? It's urgent." What's this about?" "Just come. I'll text you the address. Be here by 8. She hung up before I could respond. A minute later, an address in Medina came through. Medina, where only the extremely wealthy lived in massive waterfront estates. I got dressed in a daze, putting on work clothes even though I knew I wasn't going to the office today. I'd have to call in sick. I drove across 520 to Medina in morning traffic, barely aware of the road. The address led me to a gated estate that looked like something from a magazine. a massive modern house with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Washington. I had to call from the gate, and a security guard checked my ID before letting me in. Patricia Matthews answered the door herself. She was in her early 60s, perfectly dressed in expensive casual clothes, her blonde hair styled impeccably despite the early hour. She looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Come in," she said curtly. I followed her through a gorgeous foyer into a living room that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. She didn't offer me coffee or a seat. She just turned to face me. "The police came to our home last night. They had questions about Daniel and about your engagement ring. They told us that ring was stolen from a murdered woman." "I know. They told me too." "I didn't know. Daniel said he bought it from a jeweler." Patricia's expression hardened. "That ring didn't come from any jeweler. It came from my husband's safe." I stared at her. "What?" "6 months ago, my husband Herbert came home with that ring. He said he'd won it in a card game from a business associate. I knew he was lying. Herbert has always had questionable business dealings. I suspected the ring was stolen or acquired through some illegal means. I told him to get rid of it. He said he would. Instead, he apparently put it in his safe." My head was spinning. "So Daniel's father gave him a stolen ring?" "I'm saying my son has made a terrible mistake, and now he's potentially connected to a murder investigation because of that ring." Her voice was ice cold. "I need you to understand something, Jessica. The Matthews family has a reputation to protect. This scandal cannot touch us. Daniel will be questioned today, and he will explain everything. But you need to stay away from him and from this family. Call off the engagement, return anything Daniel has ever given you, and do not speak to the press about any of this." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Stay away? He's my fiancé. If he's in trouble, I need to support him." "He's not really your fiancé, dear. That ring was stolen twice over. There was never a real engagement. You're just a girl my son was dating who got caught up in his poor decisions. Consider yourself lucky that you found out before the wedding." She was dismissing me, dismissing our entire relationship, and part of me realized she might be right. If Daniel had stolen that ring from his father's safe, knowing or at least suspecting it was stolen property, then he'd put that ring on my finger knowing I could be implicated in something criminal. He'd lied to me, used me. "Does Daniel know where the ring really came from?" I asked. "Does he know it was taken from a murdered woman?" Patricia's expression flickered slightly. "I don't know what Daniel knew or didn't know. That's something he'll have to explain to the police. But Jessica, for your own sake, distance yourself from this situation immediately." I left that house feeling numb. I drove straight to the police station, even though I wasn't supposed to be there until 2 p.m. I needed to tell them everything Patricia had told me. Detective Chen and Rodriguez met with me in a small conference room. I explained about the call from Patricia, about Herbert's safe being robbed, about Daniel apparently taking the ring without permission. "So Daniel's father had the ring first," Rodriguez said, taking notes, "and you're saying the mother believes Herbert acquired it through illegal means?" "That's what she said. Won from a card game, but she didn't believe that." Chen and Rodriguez exchanged significant looks. "What?" I asked. "What does that mean?" "Herbert Matthews has been on our radar for years," Chen said carefully. "He's a commercial real estate developer with suspected ties to organized crime, money laundering, fraud, possibly worse. We've never been able to make anything stick, but if Herbert had Catherine Williamson's ring—" She trailed off. My blood ran cold. "You think Daniel's father was involved in Catherine's murder?" We're exploring all possibilities, Rodriguez said, including the possibility that Herbert acquired the ring from whoever killed Catherine, maybe through his criminal connections. And Daniel took it from his father's safe and gave it to me without knowing where it really came from, I said, desperately wanting this to be the explanation. Maybe, Chen said, or maybe he knew exactly where it came from. They questioned me for 2 more hours about everything I knew about Herbert Matthews, about Daniel's relationship with his father, about their family dynamics. I told them about the cold distance I'd always felt from Daniel's parents, how I'd never been welcomed into their home until this morning's confrontation, how Daniel had always been vague about his family's wealth and business. "Has Daniel ever been violent with you?" Chen asked. "Never. He's always been gentle, kind. He's never even raised his voice at me." "Has he ever had unexplained absences, times when you couldn't reach him or when his explanations for where he was seemed off?" I thought hard. Sometimes he'd travel for work and be out of contact for a day or two, but that seemed normal for his job. I never questioned it. "Do you know what Daniel was doing the night of November 19th, the night Catherine Williamson was murdered?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through months of text messages and calendar entries. November 19th. 4 months ago. There, a text conversation from that night. "Daniel, working late tonight, big project due. Probably won't see you. Love you." Me. "No worries, I'm exhausted anyway. Movie night with Rachel. Love you too." He said he was working late, I told the detectives. I was with my friend Rachel that night. I remember now. We watched some rom-com and ate too much ice cream. Daniel texted me around 11 to say he was finally leaving the office. "Can we see those texts?" I handed over my phone. They screenshotted the conversation. "We'll need to verify his work alibi for that night," Rodriguez said. "See if his office security records show him there." Over the next 3 days, my life became a nightmare. The story hit the news. Engagement ring linked to unsolved murder. Then, local finance worker questioned in murder investigation. My name wasn't released, but everyone who knew me knew about my engagement, knew about the ring. My phone exploded with calls and texts. From friends wanting to know if it was true, from coworkers who'd seen the news, from my mother crying and asking what was happening, from reporters who'd somehow gotten my number wanting a statement. I didn't go to work, I didn't leave my apartment. I just sat there refreshing news sites and waiting for answers. Daniel called me exactly once, the day after the police first questioned him. "Jessica, I need you to know I didn't do anything wrong," he said, his voice strained. "I took that ring from my dad's safe, yes. That was wrong, and I'm sorry. But I didn't know where he got it from. I just knew it was valuable and beautiful, and I wanted to give it to you. I didn't know it was connected to a murder." "Your mother said your dad won it in a card game." "That's what he told her. I don't know if that's true. My dad does business with some sketchy people. It's possible he got it from someone who stole it. But I swear to you, I had nothing to do with that woman's death. I didn't even know who she was until the police showed me her photo." "Where were you the night she died? November 19th. There was a pause. "I was working late, like I told you in my text." "Can you prove that?" Another pause, longer this time. "The building security system was down that night for maintenance. There's no record of me being there. But I was there, Jessica. I was working on a presentation for a client meeting the next day. You have to believe me." But I didn't know if I believed him anymore. Everything about our relationship suddenly felt questionable. "Daniel, I need space. I can't do this right now." "Jessica, please, I love you. We're supposed to get married. Don't let this destroy what we have." What we have was built on you giving me a ring stolen during a murder, from your father's safe, after he got it from God knows where. Everything about us feels like a lie right now." I hung up. He tried calling back multiple times. I didn't answer. The investigation continued. Herbert Matthews was brought in for questioning. His lawyer was present and he refused to answer most questions, but the police got a warrant for his financial records and his safe. In the safe, they found 2 other pieces of jewelry that had been stolen from Catherine Williamson, a diamond necklace and a designer watch. Herbert was arrested for receiving stolen property. His lawyer immediately started working on a deal. 2 days later, Detective Chen called me. "Can you come to the station? We have some information to share with you." I went in, my stomach in knots. Chen and Rodriguez sat me down in the same conference room. "Herbert Matthews has agreed to cooperate in exchange for reduced charges," Chen said. "He's told us where he got Catherine Williamson's jewelry. He bought it from a fence, a person who deals in stolen goods. That person has been arrested and is also cooperating. And they've given us information about who actually murdered Catherine." "Who?" I asked, my heart pounding. "A man named Kyle Thompson. He's a former contractor who'd done work on Catherine's apartment building. He had access to keys, knew she had expensive jewelry, knew her fiancé was out of town that night. He broke in, planning to steal and sell the jewelry. Catherine came home unexpectedly and caught him in the act. He panicked and killed her." "So it wasn't connected to Daniel at all?" "Daniel's only crime was stealing from his father's safe and unknowingly giving you stolen property. He's facing charges for theft and receiving stolen property, but he wasn't involved in Catherine's murder." Relief flooded through me. Daniel wasn't a murderer. He was a thief and an idiot, but not a killer. "What happens now?" I asked. "Kyle Thompson is being charged with murder. Herbert Matthews is facing multiple charges related to his involvement with stolen property and organized crime. Daniel Matthews will likely face lesser charges and possibly probation, depending on what the prosecutor decides." "And me?" "You're clear. You had no knowledge that the ring was stolen. You're a victim in this, Miss Morgan." A victim. That's what I was. Not a fiancé, not a bride-to-be. A victim of deception and terrible choices and being in the wrong place at the wrong time. I went home and cried for hours. Not for the lost engagement, but for Catherine Williamson, for Marcus Chen, who'd lost the woman he loved, for the life that had been stolen from them. I thought about how close I'd come to marrying into a family involved in criminal activity, how Daniel's poor choices had put me in the center of a murder investigation, how my dream proposal had turned into a nightmare. Daniel texted me constantly over the next week, apologizing, begging for another chance, promising he'd make it right. His parents had cut him off financially and he was facing legal bills he couldn't afford. He wanted me to stand by him, to forgive him, to go back to planning our wedding. I met him one final time, at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill. He looked terrible, exhausted, scared, defeated. "I'm so sorry, Jessica," he said. "I made a huge mistake. I just wanted to give you a beautiful ring, and I didn't think about where it came from. My dad had it, so I took it. I know that was wrong, but I did it because I love you." "You didn't think about where it came from," I repeated. "Daniel, a woman died. Her jewelry was stolen off her dead body and sold and ended up in your father's safe, and you took it and put it on my finger without ever asking if that was okay, without telling me the truth." I know, and I'm sorry, but we can get past this. We love each other. We can start over, get a new ring, have the wedding we planned." I looked at this man I'd thought I'd spend my life with, and I realized I didn't know him. Maybe I never had. "I can't marry you, Daniel. I can't be part of your family. I can't trust you. What you did, stealing from your father and lying to me about it, shows me who you really are, and that's not someone I want to build a life with." "Jessica, please." "I'm done. I hope you figure out your legal situation. I hope you learn from this, but I'm done." I walked out of that coffee shop and I didn't look back. The next few months were difficult. The story had been all over the news and everyone knew about it. Dating in Seattle after being the girl with the murder ring was basically impossible. Guys would Google me and find out the whole story and ghost, or they'd ask invasive questions about the investigation on the first date. I ended up moving to Portland for a fresh start. New city, new job, new life. Far enough from Seattle that people didn't immediately connect me to the story. I still think about it sometimes, about Catherine Williamson and the life she should have had, about how a moment of violence destroyed so many lives beyond just hers, about how easily I could have been legally implicated had Daniel been more directly involved. But mostly, I think about the lesson I learned, that you can't really know someone just because you love them, that trust has to be earned through actions, not just words, that when someone shows you who they are through their choices, you have to believe them. Daniel took a plea deal and got 2 years probation for theft. Herbert faced more serious charges and is currently serving a 5-year sentence for receiving stolen property and money laundering. Kyle Thompson was convicted of Catherine's murder and is serving life in prison. Marcus Chen, Catherine's fiancé, reached out to me once through the police. He wanted me to know he didn't blame me for what happened. He said he hoped I could move forward with my life the way he was trying to move forward with his. That letter meant everything to me. I'm 30 now. I live in Portland and work for a marketing agency. I'm dating someone new, a teacher named Alex, who's kind and honest, and whose family I've actually met and spent time with. We take things slowly. I ask questions. I verify answers. I don't just trust blindly anymore. I haven't worn a ring since that day the detectives took Catherine's ring from my finger. Alex knows the whole story. He understands why I'm cautious, why I need time, why I flinch sometimes when I see expensive jewelry. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd married Daniel before the truth came out, if I'd become Mrs. Matthews and gotten tangled up in his family's criminal world without even knowing it, how my whole life would have been built on lies and illegal activity. I dodged a bullet, a terrible, devastating bullet that killed Catherine Williamson and nearly destroyed my life too. So when I see engagement announcements on social media now, when I see beautiful ring photos and excited captions about forever, I feel happy for those people. But I also feel a small twist of anxiety because I know now that sometimes the most beautiful things hide the darkest secrets, and sometimes the person you think you know best is really a stranger. That ring was supposed to symbolize love and commitment and a future together. Instead, it symbolized lies, theft, violence, and death. And I'll never forget that the sparkle I'd admired on my finger for 6 days had once adorned the hand of a woman whose life was stolen from her. Catherine Williamson should have gotten married, should have had the future her ring represented. Instead, that ring became evidence in her murder case, then a tool in a crime, then a symbol of betrayal on my hand. I think about her every day, and I promise myself that I'll never take for granted the life I still have, the choices I still get to make, the future that's still possible for me. Because Catherine never got that chance, and the least I can do is live my life with the honesty and integrity that she deserved and never got.